make sure I have my at the top. Welcome to the September meeting, the August meeting of the Board of Education. I'm Mike Young, Vice Chair, serving while Jen Zen is having fun somewhere else. And I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:04. And if you guys will stand, the Center Elementary School has a pre-recorded national anthem for us. Center Elementary, my friends. Art and music doing well there, I see.
Yard Goats.
We're at the Yard Goats game. Did they win the game? Do you know?
They never win.
They never win. All right. The next item on our agenda would be a special recognition. Superintendent?
Yes. We've decided to combine the special recognition for all of the maintenance and custodial staff with Greg Kleiman's going to do a little bit of a presentation on some of the work that they have done to get school open. So it's a special recognition / special report for the board's pleasure.
Great.
Greg?
Thank you. So this is more recognition for the incredible work of our custodial and maintenance teams. Thanks, I appreciate it. All right, so I'd first like to thank the board and Dr. Nickel for inviting me to speak this evening. My name is Greg Kleiman. I am the Director of Facilities for Ellington Schools. I'm here tonight to share with you a little about our custodial and maintenance teams and share their efforts and the incredible work that they do to get some recognition for them. Before I do that, I'd like to pay respect to a steadfast member of our facilities department.
There you go.
There you go.
Barbara Kelleher was a 25-year employee of the Ellington Schools. She was a fierce advocate for everything Ellington, the town, the Board of Ed, most of all the children. She was a very tough lady, tough as nails, but incredibly sweet. Unfortunately, she lost her battle after a long illness and passed away in January of this year. She is very missed. All right, so that brings us to our current maintenance and custodial team. And this team right here are the people responsible for keeping the schools running and providing a clean and safe environment for our children every day. We have Neil Ducharme. Neil Ducharme from Center School. He's got 15 years of service with the district. Jeff Chiavetti from Crystal Lake. He is our resident senior employee with 20 years of service. Mr. Dale Wilson with Windermere Schools. He's been with us for 12 years. Brian Chakosky, head custodian at Ellington Middle School. He's been with us for 3 years, and prior to that, he served for 22 years with the Enfield Board of Ed. We have our new member, Tammy Jacobson. She's been with us for about 6 months. She is the operations administrative assistant. She took over a modified role of Barbara Kelleher's job. She was with Parish Hill and Chaplain for 12 years. She's been a godsend for our department ever since she came. She really hit the ground running and has been doing a great job. We have Rick Laguerre, our HVAC mechanic. He's been with us for a little under a year. And I'll tell you, when I first started, we only had one of our 3 maintenance positions filled. We only had the electrician. So I had to rely on vendors to do some of our HVAC work, our plumbing work. And the vendor that I worked with, we had a long-term project going on over the summer, and they sent Rick to be our tech. And after working in our schools and with our staff and bonding with the other custodians and the maintenance guys and everyone in the school, Rick decided that Ellington would be a good home for him, and he came aboard permanently. And he is a mechanical wizard. He's great, and we're so happy to have him. And last pictured is Tim Pinto. He is our plumbing tech. He's been with us also for just over a year, and Tim had 25 years with the Manchester schools as a plumber. And Tim is always going to be very near and dear to my heart because he was my first hire after I started. And Tim is an incredible guy and brings a lot to the table for us. And, you know, I'll tell you, it's a new maintenance team, but a number of these head custodians have told me unsolicited that it's the best maintenance team that they've worked with. And when you see how long some of these guys have been here, that really says a lot. So unfortunately, these couple of guys weren't able to make picture day. We have Ray Clark. He is the head custodian here at Ellington High. He's been here for 17 years. And Mike Condell is our district electrician. He's been with us for 13 years. Now, just with our small team of head custodians and maintenance personnel, we have over 80 years of combined service just to the District of Ellington. And for having, you know, a relatively small maintenance team, that's a pretty big number for how long they've been around, and it says a lot about the town and, you know, the board and the community. Now, behind this leaders is a group of another 20 support staff consisting of shift leaders, second shifters, and these people do extraordinary things every day. To be able to appreciate what they do, we really need to first understand their duties. So of course they do the vacuuming, they clean the bathrooms, they maintain the floors, they mop, and they take out the trash. And they also clean the glass. So that is a picture of one of our second shifters at Ellington Middle School. Her name is Sol, and that is her getting inside of a display case to clean it and do what needs to be done to get the school shining for the beginning of the year. And this is, you know, what our people bring to the table. And these visual aids I'm providing you are just a small representation of what these people do every day. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Your maintenance team and your custodial staff are always the first ones in the morning. They're the last ones to leave at night, and their tasks and challenges and duties are never ending. They face equipment malfunctions, especially as of late. We're dealing with a lot of supply chain issues. I can tell you Crystal Lake School had to go 7 months without their floor cleaning machine, which is a very important part of their cleaning process. They were without it for 7 months because of a supply chain issue with the vendor, and I did not get a single complaint from the school or anybody about the cleanliness of those floors, because these guys get it done no matter what. Now, the volume that they have to cover is downright astounding. They clean, maintain, and sanitize 450,000 square feet of commercial educational space every single day. Every single day, no matter what, without fail. And these teams, they also work hard to support the community and the educational initiatives of their school. And these are just a few of the events that the staff assist with. They set up for it, they break it down, they clean up after it, they often have to rearrange their daily tasks when these events occur on weekdays, and if not, they're coming in on the weekends to support the community and to support their school. Now, on top of the daily interior duties, and on top of supporting their schools and communities, these teams are also responsible for the exterior maintenance of their building. So of course they do the mowing, they trim the bushes, they weed whack, no, back up. But they also do things like this. No, go back to that. They do things like this. They cover themselves in head to toe, because when we have poison ivy issues as a school, we are not allowed to use herbicides. So if there's a poison ivy issue, these guys cover themselves, these guys and gals cover themselves in head to toe, and they go hunt the poison ivy. And I can tell you from experience, they do not always get out unscathed. But anytime someone catches poison ivy, they always say the same thing. Better them than the kids. Now, this next image that we already got a quick preview of may trigger some emotions. This is just a visual aid, but I think we all recognize this image and what it symbolizes, because snow removal is a beast. When it comes to snow, all bets are off. The storm and the snow dictates the schedules of the crew. And these crews do what it takes to make sure that the school is safe and ready to open as soon as the roads are safe for travel. Now, they often have to drive to schools in very nasty conditions themselves. They bring multiple changes of clothes because they park themselves there until the job is done. And when that's all done, when they have the school clear and safe, many of them have to go home and clear their own driveways and their own walkways for themselves and their families. Go ahead. Now, another aspect of the custodial duties that I think is somewhat overlooked sometimes is the role they play in harmonizing the delicate ecosystem between the teaching staff, the support staff, the front office staff, administrators, and their own staff. When you look at a school as a whole, there's a lot of different people there. There's a lot of different personalities, and the custodians build a rapport, and they navigate those relationships to keep their schools moving forward effectively and efficiently. So after all that is said and done, we get to this glorious day, the last day of school. And when the final bell rings and the teachers and the support staff can take a sigh of relief and take a step back and begin planning for the next year, that is when the real work starts for the custodial and the maintenance teams. Classroom moves, painting projects, and administrator to-do lists are only a few of the things they hit the ground running with as soon as summer starts. And these tasks and other tasks need to be scheduled around the numerous summer activities that we have going on in the schools to support the education. And these guys, it's really a dance for them to be able to get everything done and not impact what the schools are being used for. And then there's also the floors. So remember I mentioned the 450,000 square feet that they have to clean every day? In the summer, they also have 450,000 square feet of flooring that they need to overturn. And that is a real picture. That is Ellington High School. It's kind of a before and after all in one. You can see before the floors are stripped and re-waxed and after, and it's a real night and day image, but that is not really a great representation of what they do, because that is an empty hallway. So that is one of the easier sections. These teams empty out every single classroom and do the floors in every single classroom while they do everything else. And we can't forget the exterior beautification that they do in the summers at the school as well. They take things like a giant pile of mulch that was delivered by a vendor, and they hand spread it out to make this beautiful scene. And again, I'm just scratching the surface of their duties. They do so much more than I have time to mention here. But that's their job. You know, at the end of the day, as extraordinary as all these things seem, and at least to me, what they do is very extraordinary. It's their duty, it's their job. But it doesn't stop there for some of them. Some of them go far above and beyond their seemingly insurmountable tasks to make the educational experience for the kids as fun and memorable as they can. So I'll share a few pictures with you. This is from an educational safari. Next one is Brian Chikoski, our head custodian at Ellington Middle School. On Fridays in December, he wears his Santa suit to school to spread some holiday cheer, and he's got great self-awareness of his personal appearance, and he embraces it, and it's great to see. And then next we have Dale Wilson, our head custodian at Windermere School. Dale has a fun suit for everything. There's not enough room on a slide to put them all on there, but the kids love it, and I love it. So now, in a large room with so many people, it's usually difficult to find one topic that everyone can see eye to eye and agree on. But speaking for myself and my staff, and I hope everybody in this room, I think we can all agree that it's all about the children and what's in their best interest. We have a very special maintenance and custodial team here in Ellington. I'm incredibly proud of the work they do every day, and I'm honored just to be a part of their team. And with that, I'd again like to thank the board and Dr. Nickel for allowing me to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiman. Very nice report. Next on the agenda is the board chair report. I'll be very brief. I do want to welcome everyone back. I'm sure everyone's heard that welcome 1,000 times. Just want to add my additional and let you know that the board is here to support you guys as you go back to work. We had a very successful invite to the administrative retreat and a nice lunch. We can see that you guys have some work to do and some good challenges and some goals, so we appreciate that, and we're here to help. I did also get a note from Chair Zen that August 3rd, the Board of Finance meeting included Tiffany Pignataro thanking Brian and Stephanie specifically for their financial end of year closing and getting that done in a timely and efficient manner. So we'll add our thanks to that and close out last year finally and start with our new year's work. So that concludes my board's report. Next is Citizen Staff Forum. Do we have any Citizen and Staff Forum sign-ups? Seeing none. Next is the consent agenda. Is there anything to be removed from the consent agenda, board members? Your heads are all down. It's just like when I give an assignment. You probably get nothing. Anything? Hearing none, consent agenda is adopted. Look at us getting some work done here. All right, reports and discussions. Special report on EHS field trip. Superintendent?
Yes, the high school's in gear in organizing these field trips, and I think it's really exciting for the kids. So Mark Richards, assistant principal from the high school, is going to take it from here.
All right. Thank you very much, Board, Dr. Nickel. On the heels of our successful Southwest trip, we had large plans. You guys have seen some of the paperwork on that. We were hoping originally next spring to get a trip to Puerto Rico. And it was brought to our attention that there has to be there should be a slight change, let's put it that way. The Puerto Rico trip is still on. Just the dates that you have in front of you for 2023, we're going to move to 2024. It was brought to our attention, there's a huge trip every 4 years of the band and choral groups as a competition at Disney. And last time they had 139 students. Given that, we think it would actually cost the students that time that we didn't really want to kind of conflict. They're both done in the April break, so they wouldn't be able to go to Puerto Rico and Disney at the same time. I mean, if they could figure out a way, that would be wonderful. But obviously, there can't be two places at once. Given the fact that everybody looks forward to that large trip, and it's only offered once every 4 years, it was in the students' best interest to kind of set everything up that we've done all the work for and just kind of look forward to 2024. It'll give students and families a better chance to financially prepare for it. So everything you see today, trip-wise, the details are largely solid as far as what we can do and what we plan to do. Just the numbers are going to be slightly off because obviously we can't predict a year and a half from now or 18 months. So I brought my team with me. We got Karen Contorno, who's our trip leader, and Grand Classroom Representative Greg Watchhausen. I think I got that right this time. We're going to kind of lead us through. So if you could change it.
Mark, so our draft motion should be for 2024.
2024.
Correct.
And again, it'll be
Whoever's
April
gonna make
break.
that motion, could you make that edit to the draft motion, 2024?
This year, for next year?
For the board motion number 11 draft, it reads 2023. And I think Mark's asking us to approve it for 2024.
2024, please.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So my name is Greg Watchelhausen, and I'm with Grand Classroom. I was a former classroom teacher for a long time, 15 years in the middle school science classroom before I left to do this work. I work as a consultant with Grand Classroom, and I am a direct partner with this great team. I had the pleasure of meeting Mark years ago, and we were brainstorming science-specific travel and service opportunities. We launched in the middle of COVID. We ran an amazing trip last year in April. I had the opportunity to see it from point A to point Z all the way through. I had a chance to guide the trip as well. And for those of you that were part of the spring presentation that met some of the students, it was my pleasure to guide them on their Southwest trip. And I'm continuing my guidance of the development of the Science Department travel program, and I'll be here all along the way. So just we can get started on just a little overview of what we're planning, what we're doing, and we'll talk a little bit about how this change of plans, though at first was discouraging, we see it benefiting more students over the longer term. And that's one of the goals that Mark and I have set for this, is to help develop a program that has a tradition of travel that students know about year after year after year. So advance that.
So I get really nervous when people give me a microphone. So if I'm too loud or not loud enough, please just let me know. So many of our trips goals and objectives are actually overarching from both last year's to this next trips. I'm hopeful that many of you possibly saw our video that we created upon return. Last year's trip, the amount of meaning and learning that took place, not just about science, but about culture, about economics, was pretty astounding for the students. And honestly, absolutely incredible to watch as an educator. In over 20 years of teaching experience, not just in high school settings, it blew my mind how involved the kids were with their environment, how into it the kids were, how dynamic they were. It was really quite astounding. And our goal here is simply to replicate that type of learning, that type of awe, that type of impact that it had within those students. And it's all based on the Science Department's goals and values. If you would kindly. Innovative practices, real life applications of EHS content. We're talking not just environmental science, biology, chemistry, geology, ecology, conservation biology, all kinds of different topics that we teach at all sorts of different levels within the high school. Personalized learning, students were actually the ones who really flipped that to the 10th degree over there. It was just amazing, the amount of questions they had for Greg. The fact that Greg was able to answer all of them is, I don't understand how all that knowledge fits up in there. 21st century skills. The global citizenship part for me was really quite large because of some of the places where we went culturally, how challenging things were for many of them, and how Greg spoke to that. It was really interesting for them to recognize where they were in their homes in Ellington and where other people were in different stages of the life. That's something that many people don't really necessarily get an impact on when they're that age. It's not something that they necessarily recognize, and I think it's something that they really saw when we were out there. Okay, so the self-directed and reflective learners, this is the part that I get almost emotional about because I was just in awe of our students. They were incredible. It was, I don't call it a field trip that I had to chaperone, I call it my vacation. Because not only were the students really interested in the same science that I was interested in, but they actually really wanted to know it. And I left my 3, 2, 4, and 6-year-old at home. So it really was a vacation for me. Co-creators and collaborators, Greg had multiple opportunities throughout the trip to offer different types of games and prizes for students. And every single one of them were not only down with it, but they were competitive about it. So they were like, no, I'm going to beat you. And everyone's, no, I'm going to beat you. And so it was really cool because a lot of them worked as teams together to find out different things. Students will engage in inquiry about real world problems. When we were out there, excuse me, we had the opportunity to visit the Glen Canyon Dam. And there's a whole host of difficulty going on right there. And I think it's actually been on the news even out here pretty recently. And the fact that Greg talked to the kids about where the water's coming from, what happens when it goes down. I mean, I don't know how many more feet, and it's very few amount of feet. And then not only do they stop producing electricity, but the amount of water they have available is just so devastating. And it's just the amount of impact and stuff like that. And honestly, the kids were so into this. I really wish that that video could have displayed that piece of it for me, what I saw in them. So, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, one more slide I have, oops. So these are just the NGSS alignments that we attributed the trips to. So we're gonna hit probably way more than this, at least culturally for the students, because there was just so much that went on. So thank you very much. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
We went through a lot of this introduction last year for Grand Classroom. Karen gives me a lot more credit than I deserve because it's the Grand Classroom model. I left my classroom to be an experiential educator, and all of these things that we talked about on the Southwest trip, this is kind of the model that we're transferring to a different location. The hands-on learning, the engagement, the cultural pieces, the service, which is something that we're doing a bit more of on this itinerary, and that's what Grand Classroom's built on. We've been around for about 20 years of doing this, so we're happy to be able to continue our work. I work with a lot of schools throughout New England, and you'll be seeing me quite a bit. I like to do my work in person with my team, as I said, again, this is stuff that we went through the last time, and always happy to answer questions about the company itself for the vetting purposes afterwards if you're interested. But we'll get to the trip itself. Quick overview, we're doing a 6-day trip. Each of these days of the trip have a different theme aligned to different curriculum items. Our first day upon arrival, this is really the biology and marine biology piece. We're visiting the Manatee Conservation Center down in, I think it's Bayamon, Puerto Rico, at the university level. So students will be able to engage not only with the research biologist and the conservationist, but they'll get their hands wet involved in a manatee conservation project. Day 2, we head more to, do a little more cultural piece. We head into the mountains a bit more. They get a little bit of fun here. We get a little cave exploring. We get a little zip line. I think that recreational resource piece is a nice change of pace instead of just complete content and complete service. Day 3, we start to work our way out to the coast. This area focuses on the coastal mangroves systems and the unique environments created there, including the bioluminescent bay, which students will have an opportunity to kayak on and swim in at night to see the glowing waters and meet with some of the marine biologists and ecologists that talk about how that is unique to, well, very few places in the world have those specific conditions. Go ahead. On day 4, we work our way into the rainforest, and this is another site of our service work. We're going to be in Ellington, which is the only tropical rainforest in the U.S. National Forest System, and we'll work with forest rangers in restoration projects, because if you remember, in 2017, Hurricane Maria came through and made a huge impact on that rainforest, and they're still doing restoration programs, and students will be able to actively participate in those programs with the Forest Service. We head out on day 5 to Culebra Island. This is where we get into our coral reef and marine studies. Students will And this is kind of almost a private charter to bring students out to some of these shallow reefs. So they will be snorkeling. We'll be doing some beach surveys out there as well. And then our final day brings us back to the city for some cultural components where we explore San Juan, some of the Afro-Caribbean districts, some of the music and food and culture to stage us for our trip home. This is a broad stroke vision of what we want to do. One of the things, the silver lining to having more time is once student engagement starts and registrations begin, students are actively going to be part of the shaping of this itinerary. And these service components and projects that we do are going to be really meaningful and purposeful with front loading for the students with these local specialists that they'll connect with ahead of time. So it kind of buys us more time to kind of enrich the content and just make that travel experience more honed into what you're looking for and much more authentic. So that's our big picture of our trip, 6-day itinerary. And yeah, I think it's a good one. I actually had the opportunity to do this with my students where I formerly taught in June 2021. I had 45 students go and do a very similar itinerary, and I've still connected with some of the scientists that are there and a part of these projects. So there's a really good template built for what your trip becomes. So that's where we're at, and that was, up and ready to roll for this April. But as I said, gives us more time to get more kids, and that's the key, because more time means more opportunities for payments, more opportunities to talk to students and engage them about them, making it more affordable in the long run. So being optimistic about that change. I think it's going to really benefit your program.
It also gives us more time. We had a lot of meetings before the trip to kind of get the bonding together. So we had 20 students who really kind of already knew each other. Obviously they know each other from class, but on a different level. And we did a lot of that work ahead of time. So it gives us even more time for that as well.
Yep, go ahead. In terms of pricing, trip cost, we have our model up there for this year. We expect with flight increases there would be a slight cost increase, maybe 3 to 5% looking at next year, but we'll reprice as we go along. But one of the benefits is that Grand Classroom does all the financing directly through them, and parents set up a payment plan, and now we've got more time. We'll do a minimal deposit. Parents set up a payment plan that works best for them, and we also will have the benefit of offsetting some of the costs of the trip because we'll likely get more students, which will bring the cost down, and also we can do like an early bird package for launch. If we were to launch, late fall until up to a year out, we could do like this year's pricing and then before next year's financing kicks in. So we're gonna step back, we're gonna regroup on the financing and look to minimize the impact of any inflation and travel related cost increases for 2024. We include everything. Travel protections and whatnot are optional for families to enroll in. A lot of the stuff that we've gone through in the past, and I'm happy to answer questions that you would have about financing or protections or coverages. But quite honestly, these guys pulled off such a great trip coming out of such a really difficult time. We slide our model over into the projected years ahead, and we're in pretty good shape to do some great travel. Okay. This is an hour's worth of conversation about refund policies, and it is residual for being a topical interest in the last year and a half that we worked on the previous trip. But the whole system set up and worked really well for students who were either unable to travel or whatnot. And I'm happy to talk about this, but I know that there's other stuff on the agenda this evening.
I was just going to close up by saying the nice thing also about this trip is it's completely all-inclusive.
Yes.
Once that price is paid, literally the students don't need anything else. I mean, they can bring money for souvenirs, but this covers flight, this covers all the food. We had lunches that were packed that we took with us. So for instance, into the rainforest, they'll be eating in the rainforest itself. So everything you see is covered carte blanche. So, and we will be, we're looking to apply for some grants as well to hopefully offset some of those adventures, as well as possibly, depending if we can get enough grants, even expand on those adventures depending on the time.
You staying in a hotel?
Yeah, so the accommodations range from 3-star better business class hotel to eco lodges depending on the location. We kind of plan that based on the numbers as we project how many students there'll be, but we have a variety of locations that we stay. One of the things that I really enjoyed as a teacher leader when I did this with students, not as a guide, was that there's full-time security with the group all day, every day, that drives in a separate car ahead to certain locations. We had no issues in any location we went on the trip, and that's a nice peace of mind for everybody as well.
So with that, if there are any other questions, we're just looking for approval for 2024.
What is the age?
Actually, that's a good thing, because by pushing it off to 2024, the other advantage we had is we're going to open it up to the 8th graders who will be freshmen. So the seniors, unfortunately, obviously will lose out, but again, a lot of those seniors are going to be attending the Disney trip. So our 8th graders will be presented to, and we can hopefully get them excited, so they'll be here, since they'll be here as freshmen.
So would you have a cutoff number as far as the number of students that would be allowed to go?
I would say we'd have a cutoff number, but before we got to that point, I would want to make sure that we had our staff on check so we had enough chaperones. So for instance, we had 21 students, we had myself and 2 teachers. Obviously, as we get to 30, we'd need extra chaperones. So I would say probably 40 would probably be about the cutoff, but at the same time, if I can garner enough interest, obviously the more people we have, it'll bring the cost down. We just have to have more chaperones.
Other questions for Mark?
Can I go?
Sure.
It looks fabulous.
It does. It
Thank
looks really awesome.
Thank you.
Do you want to make that motion now? That would be motion number 11. Or we'll take it in stride. Would you like to hear us vote on it?
If you'd like some time to talk about it.
Well, I'll wait to hear if we get a motion.
Move that the Board of Education approve the Ellington High School field trip to Puerto Rico in 2024, subject to conditions as outlined in Board Policy number 6153.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? It passes unanimously. Have a great trip in a year.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's gonna be amazing.
It does look amazing.
I want to go.
Next on the agenda are board committee reports, and policy is number 1.
All right. Let me find the right paper.
I'll cover for you. I'll sing or something.
Oh, great. As you can see, we've done a lot of work from the action items that you see. We have almost a full completion of policy series 0s to 6,000. I say almost because there's some tabled ones that we're still going to be working on and discussing in September. And then also in September, we'd like to get the whole Board of Ed together because we would like to work on the 9,000 series, which is like the Board of Education bylaws. So we want some discussion on that. So hopefully.
You're going to take a regular board meeting for that, or is it
Nope,
separate?
it would be a separate meeting, right?
In lieu of a policy meeting, maybe?
Yeah, I
We
mean.
haven't discussed that. What
Yeah,
time.
the thinking, I mean, it can be, the thinking would be we could do a policy committee meeting, invite the entire board. It can be a little bit of a workshop style too. Possibly we might invite the attorney. And because there's a professional development component of it, right? So when you're discussing bylaws, it's basically your bylaws of how you all decide how you want to govern, how you want to hold yourselves accountable, and how you want to do your work. And so having a legal perspective on that is important. Having all 10 board members present is important, and it's a nice way to kind of set expectations and move forward in as a cohesive unit.
So the plan is to do that in September, possibly in lieu of the September policy meeting?
In lieu of?
Possibly, I mean, however we want to schedule it.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. And it's like, nothing like a
good.
night of policy.
Yeah,
right?
that'll just excite you. I'll bring some.
Steve,
What's that?
a lovely night of policy?
Well, I'll bring snacks.
When is it gonna be?
We haven't got a date yet.
Yeah, it should be
Our
sometime in
policy chair will
September.
take care of notifying us on that.
All right. There, Scott and Tracy's been excellent in putting all these papers online in order for us, and we're looking to have some of that up on the website clarified.
Some, not all. We have a long ways to go. We're going to be working with Shipment to help us renumber and figure out like what's going to be the best way to kind of organize all the policy work.
Did you say on the web as well, publicly available?
Eventually, it
Yeah,
will be
yes,
on the
eventually,
web.
we're working on a new model, a couple different ways to look at the policy. We want it to be searchable. We want it to also be like you can just hit one policy, you don't have to go into the entire book. But we've got to figure out how to number it and to do a lot of formatting things to make sure that we're really making it be a professional Board of Education policy book that we're really truly cutting in half. It's going to be much more accessible, much more public-friendly, much more board-friendly in terms of policy that means something that you can find and not a bunch of extra superfluous policy that is unnecessary. So I think you're going to really appreciate it, but it's going to take some time for us to organize all that.
Will that count as part of the Transparency for Trust
It certainly will.
components?
Yes.
As our goals? All right, that would be great.
Can I ask a question?
That is a question.
May I?
Yes, you may ask another question if you wish.
We have, I was at a couple of policy committees, and many of the policies were moved to administrative regulations. Now, were they moved, written the way they were in the policy, or are they going to be something new that the board hasn't seen before?
So we have a entire section that I'm working on with the administrative team on regulations. Regulations, as you know, Liz, and I'm just saying this for the benefit of the entire board, regulations aren't required to be approved by the Board of Education, they're a policy. However, they are required to be presented to the board so they are aware of them. And we will also be having those regulations in the policy book for everyone to see. So some of them, Liz, will be taken verbatim directly from Shipment on what their proposed regulations are. But those are things I have to look through and see if it is germane to us. Some of it has to be contextualized to Ellington. So because sometimes regulations are not applicable to a particular district for particular reasons. Sometimes you have to change the forms around. Sometimes forms are part of regulations. So we're trying to chip away at that right now. We have a whole spreadsheet of the policies that we passed that also need regulations, because not all of them do.
Okay, so if someone was to look at the policy book, they would be able to be directed to the regulations?
They would be able to see the regulations right next to them.
Right next to
And they
the
would be
particular
labeled as
policy.
such. It would say policy, and then below it would be regulations.
All right, for instance, the policy on search and seizure, you would have the regulations, the policy first, and then the regulations would be after it?
The regulations would come after policy. I'm not quite sure about the search and seizure, if we have
No, I'm
regulations
just
on that.
saying,
But
I was just
it would be
using it.
policy, then regulations, right in the policy book, right online for everyone to see. A lot of times there'll be forms in there that are applicable for the public to use too, at times.
So that will be thick too.
And that's consistent with what we did in the past. We had regulations with a parentheses around the R next to the policy, and they were online and everyone could see them.
Right, they were with the policy.
With the
right
policy,
in
and
the
that won't
policy.
change. They're important to be public. They're not supposed to be secret.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask about the regulations also. I've read several of pages of that 1,099 pages that we got. And many of the policies do have regulations. They're very legalistic, and for something like IDEA or Title IX, I don't have a concern with the policy, with the regulations. But there are some regulations that I do have a concern with, such as student use of district computers, management and guidelines for students when they are to be disciplined. For example, the policy for Shipment says that possession of a cellular phone is subject for removal from class. Use of a privately owned electronic technological device. And there are some that I do not feel comfortable with just not seeing the administrative regulations. And it appears, and I spoke with you at the policy committee, that some of our policies that we had page after page of little tiny things moved into the regulations, and that's true. But if the board isn't allowed to review those at least, some of the pages from Shipment say that regulations have to be adopted. Other regulations say they don't have to be adopted. It's very confusing. And in reading all of this, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Policy is one of our 3 big jobs as a board member. And I'm feeling uncomfortable, and I have to say so, that we're told we don't need to look at these.
I never told you that you need to look at them. The regulations will be presented to you in policy. You certainly can review them and make suggestions. You don't need to.
Can we make changes, or
we could
discuss things in
sure,
policy committee?
Correct. Remember, the regulations are designed to ensure that the administration is able to carry out the board-approved policy. So the administration has a great deal of interest in making sure that those regulations are something that are doable for them to do. We can present the regulations in the policy committee. We can discuss them. You can provide input. The only caveat is it's not a requirement of the board to adopt the regulations. The reason why it's not is because regulations can change regularly based on different things that occur, and you don't want to have to go through a first and a second reading and a big change in policy. But anytime that we go and change the regulations, we're going to let the board know, the policy committee know that here are some regulations that we're going to be adjusting for this year for these reasons, and we can have a conversation about that.
Okay, fair enough.
And all said and done, we hope to get it done by the end of the year? Is that what we talked about, Scott, for a timeline? In December, January-ish?
That would be, the hope would be that when we go away for
Right
the,
through 9,000, all of it.
yeah, that would be the hope, though, because if we can do, say, first read, second read at the end of the day on the 9,000 series and the table policies, theoretically, and then we do, during that time, we're doing a lot of the formatting work and getting that all ready. It'd be great if we could be at the December board meeting and we could say, the policy book is up online, we're all set, let's go into the holiday season and be good with that. That's what the goal is.
So it's
It
like
could be
a
held up,
Christmas
but
present, is that what you're saying?
it'd be a Christmas present. Isn't it amazing?
Holiday present.
A policy handbook.
Aaron, is that going to actually happen online in our website?
You're referring to the policy?
Yeah, this is something that Tracy is working with me on. And so we'll fold in.
And she assures us it will happen.
Yeah, Tracy assures it. It's her declaration.
All
She's
right.
taken care of us this far, I think.
That
Yeah.
sounds
So that's the goal.
great.
Let's see if we
That's
can
the
meet
goal.
it.
All right, cool.
So that concludes my
Thank you. Finance.
Okay, so finance, we discussed the shared services. And if you take a look at one of your pages, will have a look like this.
Okay.
And this is how they're going to, and Brian, you can certainly help me with this, as far as the blue would be the town's responsibility, and the orange would be our responsibility
I'm
as
still
far as
getting there.
payment is concerned.
It's like almost to the back.
It's-
Yeah, I'm
it's-
getting
it's
there.
in the
Down
back
the
of the
back.
staple.
It's
Got it. I'm
Got
here.
it, okay. So we did spend time on that. We also spent time looking at the memorandum of understanding with the town as to how much the town would be paying and how much the Board of Education would be paying. And there will be time to review, I guess, if things change monetarily. And I believe you're scheduled to go with this in January,
November 1st.
November
November
1st.
1st.
But there's an overlap with
There
the
is.
town services. And the memorandum of understanding was looked at in executive session by the finance board, and we decided to have Brian make any changes that need to be made, and with the town attorney, and you can see that memorandum of understanding, which we will be voting on this evening. And then Brian went through his budget, and I will let him do that again.
And just an update on the memorandum of understanding. When we were at the finance committee, the town attorney had not finally reviewed some of the changes that we had. We actually got it back today, and so the document that you have in front of you is the final document that will be going both to this board and then to the Board of Selectmen in September.
Okay.
I think also coming out of Finance Committee is there's a recommendation to move or to ask of the Board of Finance and Selectmen a $25,000 appropriation to our unexpended funds account. We're returning $31,000 and change to the town this year. We had only projected about $5,000, and so we're asking for that additional $25,000 to go to the unexpended funds account, which was set up for the purposes of special education tuition and transportation. As you know, those are highly variable accounts, and our team has done a great job in bringing students back, but there are times when students go to, or students move into district, or other students go out to, say, a magnet school, and we're required to do transportation or pay for their tuition, and that's beyond our control. And so we want to make sure that we have enough cushion within that account, and that $25,000 will help.
No. So everybody's reading their memorandum.
Yes,
So,
it
yep,
seems
you
to
should
me
look at
is
it.
to be pretty straightforward. You're just adding a little bit of supervision, and that they're going to pay for one of our level 1 techs.
Yeah, they are going to pay for the blue tech is going to be a town employee, but it's going to fall to Aaron and other members within the department to kind of oversee that person's work. That person may work at the town, but they also will work within our schools. They actually may not work at the town. If it's a new employee, they may be trained up working in the Board of Ed, and then maybe eventually make their way over to the town side. But ultimately, Aaron and his team will be responsible for both networks and all the systems that go along with both applications.
And he'll answer to both the superintendent of schools and the first selectman, but he's actually our employee.
And the board.
The board.
And the board.
When I call them.
Aren't you lucky, Aaron?
Ms. Nord, would you look on the back sheet of your motions 12, 13, and 14? Would you entertain doing those now
I can.
in the context of this
I can.
report?
Well, we would do the approval 12, 13, and 14.
We could if you move them.
Okay. I move to, that the Board of Education approve the administration to finalize the MOU with the town for information technology shared services as discussed.
As a second?
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
What? Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The motion carries unanimously. Do you have another motion?
Yes, I do.
I thought so.
Move that upon recommendation of the Finance Committee, the Board of Education approve the information technology restructure to meet the IT shared services plan as outlined in the MOU with the town.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion of the MOU? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains? That passes unanimously. And Ms. Cooper-Schmidt also is voting yes by text. Is that legal? Can I do that? She's texting me?
I would say,
I mean, it's just for information only, maybe.
I think it's for information.
Okay, yeah.
She's not technically present with.
So when
she
if you
can
hear
do
a
it
buzz.
remotely, but she didn't really.
Right, we didn't loop her into the meeting.
Yeah, it's a little awkward that way.
That's fine. She is texting me, though, her support for those. Ms. Noor, do you have a third
And
motion?
another motion, move that upon recommendation of the Finance Committee, the Board of Education approve an appropriation request to the Boards of Finance and Selectmen of $25,000 to the unexpended funds account.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
You didn't have a
You
second.
didn't second?
Oh, who second? We didn't get a second?
You didn't get a second.
I didn't get a second to this.
Second.
Maybe you did.
Now I got a second, thank you. Now is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Is that it for finance?
Yes.
Okay, operations.
I'm gonna let that go to Liz, because she covered for me.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank you,
so,
Liz. Thank you, Liz, I was on vacation
nice.
at the beach.
There were 3 items on the operations agenda, and, well, I mean, I gotta find that now. The first was the PTO, Leah Lugenbuehl, president of the PTO, was at the meeting with Principal Soto, and what they did was discuss with a walkway, a sensory walkway, so that children can move about the walkway, similar to what Center School did in the hallways, where the kids had activities, and it would be beneficial to the kids. They'd be able to walk through this pathway, and it would involve almost all their body senses, balance and concentration, and it would help to relieve stress, and it would help to get them more prepared to sit down and get back into class afterwards. They also were going to have another walkway where the children would have something similar to a track that they could walk at during recess, or people in the community could even use to go over there and to walk. So that we felt needed to be approved by the Public Works Committee, because they would be taking care of the yard there where the track was. And then the third, I'm trying to remember what the third one was. Important, HVAC, and he's not here anymore. So I would let Brian discuss what was going on with that.
Yep, so we engaged CES, which is a mechanical engineering plumbing design firm. They also do commissioning work to take a look at all of our schools' HVAC systems. On our capital plan for the last couple of years, we've noted that we definitely have boiler upgrades that are due within the next 5 years. But definitely some of the ventilation work that we've done during the last 2 years has put more stress on our systems, and has caused kind of more repairs coming due. And so we want to kind of get a full assessment of all of our schools, save Windermere, because we know that one's going to be replaced very soon, and kind of develop a long-range plan to either update our capital plan moving forward, or potentially lump a whole bunch of things all into one package, potentially to bring ultimately to the voters to vote on. So still kind of be determined once we kind of see that full scope of the report is which direction we're going to go. But that's the ultimate goal of that report, is to kind of get an assessment of what we need in the district, things that we need to do, things that we want to do over the next 5 to 10 years, and then figure out the best way to package that to move it forward.
Brian, could you talk about the state money?
Yeah, and part of that is to set ourselves up potentially for a grant application. The state made $90 million available for HVAC upgrades. It sounds like a lot of money, but it'll go quick, and so we want to make sure that we have a strong application whenever it comes, whenever those program regulations come out, so that we can get that in fairly quickly, and I think get some of that money up front.
Brian, is there any shared services involved in that, or is that just the schools?
Right now it's just the schools, depending on the way that we go. Well, either way, it's going to have to either be town capital improvement plan money or potentially a larger referendum type vote. So from a shared services perspective there, it's definitely something we will collaborate on with the town as we get to that stage.
And they could add in to,
Yep.
to our proposal.
Potentially as well,
Yeah.
if they have some needs. Yep.
And there was a cost associated with the study?
Yeah, the cost of the study was $20,000. We're picking that up within grant funds, so it won't impact our general fund budget.
Anything else on operations?
No.
All right, thank you. Curriculum, I guess I would call on myself. Oliver, you want to step up in case you want to add anything? We had 3 items on our agenda. We met yesterday. And what we got were 2 reports on our data, on SBAC from the spring, and on the SAT, the PSAT and SAT results. I would lump those together. I guess in my report, it's all really positive. I think there's reason to be very proud of how we weathered COVID and how we've pretty much recovered from any kind of learning losses that we saw. Those are general conclusions that are variable, I guess, across schools to some extent, but overall, it's really a positive report. And I can't say congratulations enough on the work you guys have done on what we heard. There are a lot of reasons for that, I guess. Some of it's interesting stuff, like getting data in the hands of teachers for decision-making, like through the Tableau and the Infinite Campus stuff that Aaron's working on. I think another is how we've looked to address specific issues with science and math in those elementary grades, looking to coordinate across the elementary schools, and our specialists have done particularly good work doing that. So did you want to add any details to that or break it down? It's in our minutes.
Right, it's certainly in the minutes. I just want to say how extremely proud we are of students and teachers for that work. There were some dips in the previous year, but we had 2 to 4% growth at a time when we're expecting, based on what we're hearing anecdotally from other districts, that many other districts have had decreases in their results. And instead, we saw huge rallies back as teachers focused on where some of the gaps might be for students, and students worked hard to stay engaged and connected to school, despite some of the challenges that have been in the background. So we're super proud of that
Well, not
work.
just the challenges, but we saw dips in our scores through those COVID years, and we're back and better in many
Yeah.
instances, which is very
Right.
cool.
And I was going to save a couple comments for my superintendent report, but I might as well comment now without going too far. We've been provided by the state ahead. How the state does it is they provide the districts with all of the comparison data throughout the state with all the school districts. And that is embargoed until the governor does his press conference, which is going to be tomorrow at 1 at Skinner Road School. They also give the data in advance at Skinner Road School.
Jeez, I could walk down.
Yes, you could. They also provide the data in advance to the media outlets so they can work on their story. So what you can imagine is the stories get written, the governor does his press conference, and then you're going to see it all over the news, right? And so we're starting to look at all of that information, and we've got a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of we're an outlier in a lot of ways in a very, very, very positive nature. And the why is always complex with data. You can't leap to conclusions, but certainly, anecdotally, part of my feeling is we know that in-person learning and getting back to school early is a significant variable, and to what extent, we don't know. But I think that's something that we're going to be reporting out on and looking to possibly do a very positive press release. But I need to see all of the data and really think it through. But that is, if you remember, that is one of the best things when we said in August and we pitched to this board that we wanted to come back, do 1 month of hybrid as a transition for kids and adults, and come back October 1st. And this board supported that. And even though it was a time of fear in a lot of ways, and people weren't sure, and it has turned out to be an amazing, courageous decision by the Board of Education to support that. It really has. So we'll talk more in the future on it, but I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. And Oliver, I know that you're going to try to maintain some continuity across changes in personnel and changes in curriculum, continuing to grow, but
Right.
that I think is your big, with the gains we've seen that you reported out to curriculum,
Yeah.
that's the big challenge, is to hold on to those, through the next couple of cohorts.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think teachers are organized and in their collaboration at this point. So I expect that the work they did even this past summer on compacting curriculum to accelerate in mathematics, focus on the science of reading further in literacy, and continue to build on the reading writing workshop model that is in place. I'm confident that we can continue to see increased student successes over time.
Yes, and I think I heard you report, although it's not reflected directly in the minutes, that there are still some themes and places we can continue to work on,
Right.
and that you're working to identify those and coordinate those across the various schools and teachers.
Right, yeah, we're looking at specific data points in SBAC, looking at the SBAC data sooner, getting that into the hands of teachers, phasing away from a sort of test prep model where the core skills and standards in the SBAC are emphasized earlier and throughout the school year. And in mathematics in particular, getting to some of the end or the later units in the Bridges curriculum will be critical, because that pulls together work around many of the standards in mathematics, and our pacing has been off a little bit in terms of getting to those units, partly due to the challenges that we've been facing over the last couple of years.
And some of the other decisions we made, like changing the math curriculum and moving geometry around, and so
Yeah.
it's good that we've kind of weathered that storm, and we're really seeing some results. So good on you. Keep it up.
Great. Thank
There
you.
was one other item on our agenda, which was a bit of a problem-solving issue, which had to do with the number of students who were interested in taking American Sign Language and then finding an instructor.
Right.
I have in my notes that we've come up with what we hope will be an adequate fix while we continue to look for full-time in-person. We're going to do some remote with guided asynchronous and synchronous support from
From
what
a
was her name?
certified
Ms.
teacher.
Posner, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to say
And-
any more about that?
No, I mean, I think it's a great model. We have the posting that continues to be out there, looking for an in-person, live, available certified teacher in American Sign Language. It's very hard to staff, but we'll keep looking. Meanwhile, we will be entering into a contract to have some remote learning provided for those students. Students have agreed to sign on voluntarily to continue doing that, and they'll have options if they
Right.
change their mind.
Right, and
They'll consent, right, to this alternative, but it's in lieu of canceling everything for the kids that are
Right.
really loving
it's 150 kids, right? So if we're talking, 10 or 12 kids, sometimes we have to not run courses because of different reasons. 150, we want to make sure those kids can take those courses. And then also, we got to give credit where credit's due. I'm the first to point out sometimes when I'm not pleased with the CEA, but this was in the full support and cooperation with the Ellington Education Association and the Connecticut Education Association. So we appreciate them working with us on this, and it's prioritizing kids. And we have a lot of work to do, but it's good for kids.
And you may recall at our administrative retreat that one of the advantages of being in Ellington was that we could do agile kinds of problem solving like that, being small enough to pull something like that off at the last minute instead of just having to routinely cancel courses when staffing is an issue. So-
Definitely. Yeah, Principal Guidry worked hard to come up with this solution and has worked through all the logistics around it, vetted through a team, and as Scott said, even through union representation. So we're confident it's the best possible solution right now, and we'll look forward to finding a regular full-time person.
Great. And I
soon
think
as we can.
curriculum's going to want to hear how that works out.
Yes.
It's-
Well, that being said, I have a student in that. His enthusiasm the first year, he just thoroughly enjoyed learning it. And
Yeah.
I think that will carry on into this next year, even though the teacher's not in person.
And one of the reasons we're confident is that at Canton High School, they did this model last year. And I spoke specifically to the superintendent, and the parents and the students were very favorable with the instructor and the model. So let's hope it translates to Ellington.
Yeah.
And
Good luck, and we'll look for, that ends my report, unless Oliver, you have anything
Thank
else
you.
to add? All right.
Oliver, would you report back to the board, say, mid-semester, and let us know,
I think
not just
curriculum,
curriculum committee, but
Right.
all, let us know how this is going,
Yep,
please?
absolutely. I'll certainly be visiting the class, but getting input from students and parents and the school administration to bring information back to the curriculum committee and through that the board.
all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Communications. Yes.
Fill in
Ms.
for
Nolan.
Miss Mullen, who's not here. We miss her. Yes, and ironically, this was a meeting that Brian Greenleaf and Tracy's taking a little bit of lead on communications. So, I think one of the model for communications right now, the main driver, and there may be other agenda items from time to time, but the main driver is promoting the board's work, the governance work that you're doing. And as you all know, Tracy has come up with a new model for the quarterly newsletter. You've seen what that has looked like, and we did, I believe, I don't think it went to the it went to the communications committee, but Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, there was, the latest newsletter had 2,400 and approximately 50 views on it for a Board of Education newsletter. So that's very, very cool. And something where there's an analytic of the different locations, 200 different locations of how people access it, what type of devices they access it from. So there's the software program just gives us more information on who's taking a look at what the board governance work is. So that was part and parcel of the communications meeting, and leading up into the next iteration of the board governance newsletter. Tracy, when is that coming out? August 29th. So that'll be the next one coming out, and so you can look forward to that.
Great. I think that concludes our standing committees report. We're moving into administrative reports. Superintendent Nichol.
Yes, my report was essentially to be able to communicate a little bit about a possible press release and the test assessment scores. So I will, the one thing I did want to remind you is, I know that Jen Brown, our human resource coordinator, she had given me a lot of work that has been going on in terms of the staffing report. I'm not going to steal her thunder. She's going to be doing a full report to you in the September board meeting. But I can tell you, she gave me a printout, and by the time she gave it to me, it already changed. So there is a significant amount of staffing work going on. You saw that, we have 29 new hires in terms of teachers. Typically, we're, between 18 and 22 on an annual basis. This is the state trend right now. Many more people have been moving for a variety of different reasons. We had our new teacher orientation today, so those teachers are off and running. But we're looking forward to September to give you like a much more detailed and comprehensive analysis of our staffing report for the summer and compared to other years.
Teacher shortages are making it challenging everywhere, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes, so that's my report.
all right. Director's report. Mr. Greenleaf.
Hello, everybody. So we already talked through kind of the first half of the finance memo. which shows that we had just under $32,000 of balance returning to the town, again with the $25,000 ask to be moved into the unexpended funds account, bringing that down to just under six in the fund balance. For the current year, we're still working on getting everything set up and all those new teachers that have been hired into the system appropriately. So I will have a better projection for you as we talk next month, which is why you don't see some of the standard variances right now, even though they show on the object summary, because we're still working through it and putting everybody in, and want to make sure that that's an accurate reflection before we start reporting out on that. So happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Brian on finance? Anything else on operations?
No.
Okay.
I have a question on operations.
Yeah, go, Carrie.
Did you check all the bathrooms in the high school and the middle school for the vaping sensors?
Yeah, we do have the vape sensors. I know at all the high school ones. I'll have to double check on the middle school ones. I believe we have some there.
Okay, but can we get a report that they're actually all working? You don't have to wait till the next meeting, but just like send something to say that they've all been tested and prior to starting school?
I can work with the facilities team and the high school administration to do that, and middle school administration to do that.
Because what I want to do is start the school off like, these things are working, we're not, we mean business, we don't really want to set up an environment where we have to shut down bathrooms, and kids, I cannot tell you, it's shocking to me how many kids won't use the bathroom at school because of what goes on in the bathrooms. You're shaking your head, so I would like you to weigh in on that for me, please, as well.
I would fully agree. I know many of my friends, first of all, don't even want to go to the bathroom because of how many people hang out there. Second, it is not fun when you go to the bathroom and you find that the door is locked and the bathroom next to it is also locked, and every single bathroom in that area is locked. It is not fun. So I would agree. I would hope that doesn't happen this year too.
And I'm going to tell you right now that I have a child that's going to be attending this Ellington High School, and I will be asking on a very regular basis about the bathroom situation, because I do not want anyone to feel like they cannot use the restroom during the day. I mean, this is a very serious matter. Everyone needs to feel safe and comfortable and be able to use the restroom. Okay, because these are things I've heard before. I mean, so we really have to step up on this. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying I do not want my child to come home and say she couldn't use the bathroom at school, because I'm gonna not be happy at all. And poor Scott's phone's gonna blow up. So I just think we send the message early on that we are providing safe bathrooms, safe environments. I don't know what we have to do that, but let's just get it done. And if it means that we have to, as a board, start to look at building some bathrooms to make sure everybody's safe, then we have to deal with that. And we have to, you need to let us know so we can try to plan for that.
So I can tell you, the vape detectors are one component of that, but there's other things going on. So, Greg was up here talking about what the team was doing over the summer. I can tell you that I had 3 maintenance crew members today trying to install bathroom partitions because they were broken last year. And so it's more than just the vape detectors. I know the high school administration has been working on a new coverage plan. I believe the middle school administration as well has been working on how they're going to utilize staff within the building to make sure that people feel comfortable going to that. And we will follow up on that with you appropriately through the year.
And maybe we need to think about getting the partitions so that you can't see into the bathrooms, because as they exist, you can see underneath, you can go over or whatever, and there's things, cracks between the doors, the old school ones. If we're going to have, situations where we have students that aren't going to feel comfortable going to the bathroom for whatever reason, then maybe we need to change up those partitions so that when you shut the door, nobody can look under, nobody can see a crack through. Maybe we need to do that. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't want kids, I wouldn't want to have to go to work and feel like I couldn't use the bathroom or feel like I can't drink water all day because then I'm going to have to use the bathroom and then I can't, So
Yep.
I don't want the students to either, you know?
Nor do we.
Thank you, Carrie. Can we get that on the operations kind of permanent agenda to keep checking on that?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's schedule a meeting, Brian, and then you can tell us all about what, you know, the updates on the vapes and we can look at some of the bathrooms if we need to, or maybe there's just a few that need
Yep.
to be altered.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
All right, board liaison reports.
Hi, everyone. So as the start of the school year approaches, activity at the high school has increased. Our schedules were released on the 15th, and the biggest change this year is that courses are now semesterized, and this helps maximize student choice because previously students were often shut out of new courses because year-long courses got in the way, and so this will probably help with scheduling and flexibility. Band camp has also started, so all band members, especially incoming freshmen, are preparing for the marching band season. In terms of athletics, tryouts are starting for fall sports, and football has already started up. I think they've run practices for a few weeks now. On a personal note, I just want to take this time to highlight some news about the composting program I'd started at the high school last year. Dr. Nickel has graciously added our program into the Ellington Public Schools food service budget, which means it'll be fully funded. And we hope that the program will become a permanent part of the high school and maybe even expand throughout the district. So I just want to thank Dr. Nickel for that.
Thank you. I'm a fan of composting.
Rick, thank you and your partner for doing that great work. So it was one of the easiest decisions I made all last year.
And just a footnote, you mentioned the semesterizing courses. I know there's been some angst around that, right? Some people wanted the same instructor the whole year, and that's been unfolding through the time that kids are getting their schedules. What your feedback is that it's being well accepted?
I know some students, they were a little unsure at first about how this is playing out, but I had talked to Mr. Guidry about this, and I heard all the reasons, and I think it's going to be one of those things you're going to have to get used to because in terms of credit and how the curriculum and stuff works, I think this is probably going to be better. I think it's just going to take some time to get used to.
To adding those personalized courses, I mean, it's making some of that possible, right?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Gary, you got anything?
Brian, you can add in if I forget something, but the Permanent Building Committee is going to meet on the 15th, and I guess we have about maybe a dozen different bids from different lawyers, not lawyers, architects for the Windermere.
That's September 18th?
It's a multi-step process.
Yeah.
There'll be a subcommittee the week of the 12th. It hasn't been finally finalized yet what date that is. And then interviews the 27th and the 28th of September. And so hopefully by the 28th of September, we'll have a full architect on board.
And the Permanent Building Committee has a scheduled meeting for the 20th of September. Maybe that will be pushed back a week.
Possibly, yep.
You know, if we do the interviews we're probably going to interview maybe 4 or 5 different architects, the whole committee, Permanent Building Committee.
Do you anticipate bringing some of those, that information back to us, to the Board of Ed, once the architect is on board?
Yeah, so one of the things we made clear at the mandatory pre-bid, where we did have 14 architects show interest in the project, is that the Permanent Building Committee is very interested in making sure that the end users have a voice in the design process. So not just the Board of Education, but obviously our staff and Principal Hill and her team as well. So we're making that an emphasis as we go through, and once we start design in earnest after the architect is selected, there will be more liaison meetings between the architect and the owner, being the town and obviously the end user and the Board of Ed.
Great, thank you.
That's it.
I just have one question for Gary. Did you, I forget now, did you hire somebody to run the project yet? Is there a project manager in place now?
Well, it's, what do we
Yeah,
call it?
Arcadis is our owner's project manager,
Yeah.
and they've been helping out. So they reviewed the architect RFP and have been working on that. I have a meeting with them tomorrow to finalize our application to the state for the grant. And then they're working right now on developing the construction manager at risk bid documents, so that as soon as we can select the architect, we'll have the construction manager's bid on the street. Construction won't start until about hopefully this time or a little bit after this time next year. But the construction manager will be on board through the design process to do estimating as well as constructability reviews, things like that, so that when we get to the construction, things go as smoothly as possible.
That it? Gary?
Yes.
Got anything?
Yes.
Angie?
For the high school, most of what I was going to say has been talked about, but I just want to welcome the new teachers. Did it come out in the newsletter? Where did I read it? Has it been out there yet? I appreciate reading all of the new teacher bios. It's
Yes, my welcome back to school letter, Transparency for Trust, a common sense approach. If you go to the second page, the last link is the biographies for the new teachers.
I guess it puts a face to names for us that are out there,
Yeah.
so I appreciate that.
And that new framework, that new model that you see there, that's what Tracy worked on. So it looks really nice.
Mr. Goodry said that the only open position is assistant at the high school library. So, but they had some candidates promising for that. So, when I've heard that other schools are not filling positions, I think we're in a very good spot.
And the ASL position, right?
Yeah, and the ASL. That's it.
Thank you.
I was unable to attend the Board of Finance.
Okay,
So I have nothing to report.
thank you. Nothing?
Well, I haven't seen the sensory path that we were talking about this week, or last week, but I understand it's done. Ms. Lugenbuehl's nephews, who live up the street from me, ran out while I was walking the dog to tell me about this wonderful path that they painted at Crystal Lake School. So I'm going to get myself up there to look at it. But I gather it was done this weekend, and with lots of help from even her family.
We'll take a few pictures or get Dario to do it for you.
All right.
Supply us some pics.
And send them to?
Us?
Us, I'd like to
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
figure out
Will
what they're
do.
talking about.
Tweet them onto the webpage.
It's board work with the operations committee. Eventually, you give them to Tracy. Eventually, they may show up in the quarterly newsletter.
Well, I was just surprised. I'm walking the dog and they run out and they start talking to me about this. And we painted, we were up painting at your school.
Very cool. Anything else on liaison reports? Anything from Craig?
Gary gave me a letter from CREC. I'm assuming that we will be meeting in September, and I'll fill you in on when our next meeting is.
Great, thank you. Action items. then.
No, I just
Go
wanted
ahead,
to
Carrie.
say, I was at the middle school today, and it was sparkling. Everything looked great, and I even said that to my husband, look how clean this place is. Everything was just, you could tell, pristine. Also, Mr. Nash did a great job in the parent orientation. It wasn't too long. He had great slides, very few questions. He was concise, very clear on giving the parents good direction without overstimulating, with too much. So it was great, and the kids got to walk around and check out where their classes were going to be and stuff. So I thought it was awesome. They did it this morning, so it was kind of good that, and the kids got to see some of their friends. I know they're doing it all week long, so great job at the middle school, and I think the high school looks great too. Just walking through here, I just give kudos to all of the janitorial staff, and I will say, even though I'm not the Windermere liaison, and I'm still getting over that, Steve, you know that, but Dale Wilson is just an incredible guy over there. Not only does he keep that building safe, but engages with the children. and just has relationships with the kids too. Just a wonderful asset to our school. One of his costumes up there, Mr. Pumpkins, I have a picture of him in that costume with my kids. That's great. So he's just, really is hardworking, not only getting the technical job done, but also the people piece. So we're really blessed to have a lot of the folks that we do have in these schools, not just educators that are, helping our kids, but also, the people in the school that are keeping our school safe. So grateful for that. So good job there, guys, and I'm glad they got the recognition tonight. I appreciate that too.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. That was very nice.
We are ready for action items. Do we have motions with regard to perhaps policy?
Do I need to read these out?
You might.
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a second read to approve the repeal and replacement of Policy 5132, dress code.
Second? No second?
I didn't hear which motion she did.
Motion number one on your draft. No second.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
You gonna say something?
I'll let you go.
On the surface, this policy, I know I voted against it in the first draft, or the first pass on this. And I was just reading through it here. It sounds good, but then when we all had a presentation, some of us had a presentation from the kids, and they put together a little bit of a pamphlet, and they told us all the work they went through, and then they showed us diagrams of how they interpret this. It doesn't give me a warm feeling. I can't support it. And when I read through it, there's not a lot of specifics. So that's my comment.
Okay.
I could just stress that a little bit, Steve. I appreciate your comment. The policy that you have is the model shipment policy with a couple small variations based on the student's presentation. But by and large, what you have is the shipment policy.
Right.
So the students' work is greatly appreciated, and it's great that they worked with Mr. Hubrins over quite some time to kind of go through a process of presenting to the board and giving their thoughts around it. Ultimately, to the best of their ability, the administration will take that policy and make their assessments of whether dress is inappropriate or not. It would be very hard to get very, very, very detailed and specific in a board policy with a dress code. It would be a very difficult thing to be able to administrate, so to speak. So you're typically going to get some things that are generally a little bit more broad, and that's the best answer I can give you on that.
Is this a case where the regulations would really be the?
No, because they addressed that in it as far as getting called down to the office. That's a procedure thing.
I don't know. I saw the photographs of what was acceptable under the policy that it's being presented tonight, and I can't support that.
So
I just can't. I mean, I think you have to set an expectation for students to come to school to learn. And I understand that people want to be able to express themselves with clothes they're wearing, and I appreciate that. And I think that that can be done in a respectful learning environment. Coming to school is not that much different than going to work, okay? And depending on what kind of employment you end up doing, there is an expectation that, you will present in a certain way to be ready to work. And I think students should come to school ready to learn.
So my recommendation would be if people felt strongly about that, because remember, they spent the existing policy that we have is not massively different than what this policy actually is. It's the culture of what kids have been wearing for the past 5 years, and we do know it changes based on a whole host of styles. If the board wanted to go into a direction that was exceedingly more conservative in terms of what Carrie mentioned, and I understand that school of thought. I'm not judging it either way. That would be a significant shifting of the culture for the high school, right? And to do that, we would have to be resetting and doing a significant amount of work with the stakeholders. It would not be something that we would just be able to do unilaterally without a lot of input from parents and students to kind of, on the continuum of conservative versus more free-flowing clothing, contemporary style, to be able to shift that down the continuum towards conservative. We would have to do a lot of work on that.
Well, I think we would be able to help parents. There are parents, I'm sure, out there that that would prefer their children not wear those styles, but that their other friends are wearing them, and they feel like if they're going to be cool, they have to wear them too. And if we just set expectations that this is, this is what you wear when you come to school to learn, then it's going to be easier for parents in the long run. It's going to be easier for students in the long run because they have that expectation, and we've set clear guidelines. Though, and I do appreciate the students' work and the faculty's work that they've done on this, and I get that. I just, as a parent, can't support that this is okay to wear some of the things that were presented to us in some of the photographs to come to school to learn in. That does not seem to me to set the right environment that what you're here to do. Scott, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
I
no.
don't agree with
I
what
understand-
we
I
were doing
understand what-
before, but doesn't mean I have to approve a new policy that I don't agree with. I know the policy was there as it existed, and I didn't vote on that necessarily or whatever, so this is something new. But I just feel, and I would like to hear more students' input too. I'm not saying I'm not trying to shut out any of the students with that. I just think that there could be more guidance, and it would be easier for parents in the long run to set certain expectations.
Scott, based on the discussions today and last month, would it be reasonable to table this for further discussion?
It's your policy, so it's reasonable if you wanted to. What I can tell you is, honestly, I did not anticipate that occurring. So, because the school administration is attempting to open school next week, and when they do their handbook, they're moving forward with this general assumption. Now, I'm also letting you know it's not significantly different than what the policy already is. So,
Scott, just one point here. It says here, students must wear footwear. I mean, footwear. So in other words, they can't come to school barefoot.
yes,
So they can wear anything, it's just footwear. It's so broad, and then when you see, and then some of the pictures that we saw, that they interpret this to be,
that's what the students interpreted. And remember, the students that worked on this for about 4 months, those interpretations shift and change very quickly with high school students. And what they feel they would wear one year is very different than what they're going to wear another year. We see this all of the time. What the administration has done, and I wouldn't say attempting to do, but what the administration has done is The best way for them to be able to have conversations with students about their dress is for the students to be a part of the conversation, and for them to run a process, and for them to have an open dialogue with the students. And when they go to discuss with parents and a student when something looks inappropriate, and there's judgment calls based on body types that are very challenging, right? People have been discussing and debating dress codes for 100 years, right? They put themselves in a position now to be able to better enforce and have better conversations with the students because they involve them in the process throughout. Personally, I don't pretend that the policy is perfect and the presentation and the images are perfect, but I can tell you, I could have done the work on my own, done all the research, wrote Shipment policy, did a presentation, and I think it would have been very, very easy to open the second guess it and say this was not really good, or I don't like how this would look, or what this happens. It's a very, very challenging and gray area situation in this day and age, and has been for quite some time. So I support Carrie's justification and rationalization. I think I understand what she's saying. I support that. As superintendent, what I want to be able to do is open up the school and not have this be the main thing that people are upset about. And so if we go backwards at this point, okay, it could be a distraction for the opening of school, and I want to have a positive opening. If there's and this is why I tried to bring up the point of a significant change in culture. The culture is not going to change significantly with this policy. It's just not. It's going to be very similar to what has been. It's just going to be easier for the administration to enforce it and deal with the kids. If there's a need for this community, as by the locally elected representatives, which is you, to relook at this in a totally, entirely different way, turn it on its head and go more towards the conservative aspect of things, I can talk about that with you. We can discuss it and see what the pros and cons of doing that would be. I have no problem doing that. It's akin to the conversation of school uniforms, right? The conversation on school uniforms has been, when you do the school uniforms, it's where you wear khaki shorts or you wear khaki pants and you wear a collar shirt with short sleeve or a long sleeve, or they do a sweatshirt or whatever. And there's pros and cons to that. It's been debated for quite some time. I've seen it be successful. I've seen it not be successful. But that's a big community conversation, right? And it's something, if the board wants to have the conversation, I can run an initiative and figure out how to do that, and we can really look at a comprehensive view of when you go to school, you should be thinking about it's like you're going to work. And yes, you can have some style, but you're going to work. I get that concept. But that's a new concept in terms of this culture, this community right now with where it's at. And we know if you kind of force it and you go try to fast track it, or you make it a confusing thing, then all of a sudden it's the kids versus the adults and we're nowhere. Right now, that's not how it is. What I hope is that this policy goes through, that we can open school and do it well. And if you want to get into all of that, I'll support you, and we can talk about it. I'll run an initiative, and we can have those conversations. I have no problem doing that. And we can reset it at some point in time and figure out the best way to kind of do it if that's the will of the board. No issues on that. And quite frankly, maybe Ms. Social's right. Maybe that there's a significant amount of parent support in the community for something like that. You know, you're never going to get everyone to agree. We know this, right? Like, you're not going to get 80 to 90% of parents to, but maybe there is a lot of support for something like that. I actually don't know, but I hear where you're coming from. So for discussion purposes, that's my recommendation of trying to move forward and open up school in a pretty positive way.
Thank you.
I definitely heard from the admin, or when we were here at the meeting.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
This is coming to the full board with the recommendation of the policy committee, is that correct?
Mhm.
Was that a unanimous recommendation?
I do not remember.
We had
I don't know who was at the.
the vote for the first read was one. I have the minutes here. The vote for the first read was a nay by Steve, and then whoever else was present at that meeting all voted yes. So I was kind of going under that assumption to a
Yep.
certain degree, which
So-
people are certainly welcome to change their minds. I'm not saying they shouldn't, and they should have that
Absolutely.
prerogative.
I'm just trying to clarify for my own thinking.
Right.
So
May I
it
say-
is coming from policy as stated here with a unanimous recommendation, is that right?
Unanimous? I don't want to clarify that unless we know that for sure. Was it unanimous?
All of the policies that came from the policy committee were, I don't know if it was unanimous, but all were recommended by the policy committee to go to the first and the second reads.
Got it. Okay, and I have one other question, then I'll call it. If we were to table it, which is what Miriam has suggested for discussion, the existing policy would remain in place, is that correct?
It would remain in place. The new policy has been worked into the handbook because there was an
Yeah.
assumption made.
Yep.
So there could be some confusion on that. It's not that we can't change the handbook because it's a digital document. We
But you
can,
said they're not substantially different.
they're not substantially different, no. It wouldn't be, it would be a little bit confusing and
Sure.
some more work, but it wouldn't be the end of the world, but it would be a surprising message to the administration and the kids that worked on it if that's what the board wanted to do. But I will,
I
if that's
got
what you
you.
want to do, I can support it.
But it's been moved and it was seconded, so this discussion is still on here.
Can
Are
I-
you making that motion to table?
At this point, no, I'm not.
Okay, Liz, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree with Scott on this. I think schools should open with this policy that the kids have worked with, and the administration also had worked on it at the high school level. I'm assuming middle school was also involved. And then if there is some issue, I think it needs to be brought back to policy and start there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
it wasn't like some of us haven't made it known that we weren't exactly enthralled with the policy. You know, we didn't wait to, torpedo this right at the last minute. I've been
I do know.
Yeah, I wasn't-
expressing myself to
Yeah,
Scott.
Steve, I wasn't trying to imply that at all. I don't think
No.
anyone was doing
Right.
that of any
Right.
sort, no.
I do know the message from, I do think the administration would appreciate this coming out if that's what they've been planning for. If we want to assess it, maybe once the new policy book is completed, we can put that on as, let's reread this in this date, and then that way
Yeah.
we can have
No
6
policies
months
forever,
of talking.
so,
Right.
yeah.
So let's,
Miriam, did you
I
want
just feel like the positive message, like Scott said, would be significant for the students and the admin, because they were the ones that were having the issues at the beginning of the year. Like,
Gotcha.
it was a lot of admin issues.
You know, I thought maybe tabling would get us off the hook here, but I do like the idea. I do understand that school is starting in a week, and myself, I think that this is something we can pass this policy today and have it on our radar to look at. Maybe we all need to get into the high school and look around, just stroll through.
I don't know
you
if
know,
I can endorse that. as
You
a
know,
motion.
someone like
Well,
Carrie and
Miriam, we'll give the
Angie.
kids a heads up that you're coming.
Yeah,
Carrie and
thanks.
Angie have.
Surprise visits.
Have kids at home, I do not, so it would be an interesting little field trip for me. And I think that maybe we should just say, we're passing it today for expediencies issues, but it is not a permanent, we will revisit it. We don't intend to have this as a permanent policy without discussion in the very near future.
Right, we
Yeah.
could refer it back to policy. Go ahead, Carrie.
This policy is
Go
often.
ahead, Carrie.
Oh, sorry.
I'll get you next.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. One of the things, I wish I had the brochure with me tonight. One of the other things that does bother me, whether it's this policy or the previous policy, is that there's no clear line. So in other words, my recollection of, there's a picture, and in one of the picture, a lot of the stomach or midsection is showing. And then in the other picture, only some of it is showing. And that's okay. So to me, I can't, if I were in an administrator or teacher's position or whoever's job it is, to say, oh, yours is showing a half an inch too much versus yours is okay. That is another issue that I struggled with the policy, because it's like, okay, well, the halter thing is not okay, but if it comes down to, I don't know which number rib, it's okay. To me, that just you get in the weeds, and then, it's not, if you're a parent, you're sending your kid to school that day, and then you get a call on dress code, you may be like, well, it looked like the picture to me, or it seemed like it was okay, but then it still puts in my opinion, from what the presentation I sat at, I feel like it still puts the administration in a dicey position to make judgment calls that I personally wouldn't want to be in that position making. So if it's a free...
In that particular day, I did mention that to
You
the,
did.
to the group.
And, if the dress code is just a free-for-all, wear your slippers to school, wear whatever, like whatever footwear, as long as you got something on your foot, I don't know, and you can just wear whatever, then it's a free-for-all. Then the administration has to do nothing. But is that the message you want to send? And I understand what you're saying, Scott, about opening school. The issue that I have is I don't want to be in a position to support something that I'm struggling with and send a message to the community saying, oh, I know, but we had to do it because, school's starting in a week, even if it's not the best thing for our student body and for administration. It may be a Band-Aid, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to just say, oh, okay. I still think there's a lot of questions within, and there, even at the presentation, we said, well, what about this? Well, they had never even addressed the issue of, okay, can you wear cat ears or tails or whatnot? They didn't even know the answer to that. So to me, can they wear it? Can they not wear it? I don't know. And so it leaves a lot to question as the policy is written right now and as the prior policy. But since they're not that much different, I don't really know where the confusion would therein lie. I don't think this new policy solves the problem for the administration, is the bottom line, if you want to just talk about that issue. In terms of, if I'm criticized for being conservative, I think kids should come to school ready to learn, whatever that means, and dressed appropriately, not in slippers, kind of a thing.
Okay, thanks. Liz?
Oh, I remember now. Most of the time, this is a policy that's redone and redone and redone and redone. So as far as high school and junior high kids are concerned. So I think it's being, we did read this before and we voted on it, with the exception of you, Steve.
Oh, he
I
voted.
really-
Just that.
Yeah,
In
he
favor.
voted against.
That's a vote.
And I think not only because school is starting that we need to pass this today, I think that this has given more definition to what the clothing has been looking like. And this is bringing some control to it by the students and the administration in a collaborative way. So I just feel that this is something at this point that we should have battled about maybe a couple of weeks ago, but I think we need to move forward.
Well,
on
if we
this.
refer it back to policy, we can battle further there.
Right.
But that doesn't solve.
but it's
the
all-
going
No,
to
we
school.
are going to have to vote on this. It's already been moved and seconded. So
Yep.
are there any more discussions before we vote?
Yeah, I'd just like to leave
Steve, go
one
ahead.
thought. Scott brought up the point about uniforms. I don't want that to be hanging out there as what I'm driving for. I think a more general statement is that, like Carrie's been saying, and I support it, is that kids in the process of going through high school need to be ready for the real world, and it would be a lot less stressful for a lot of kids if they were really truthful about it, if they just dressed appropriately, ready to go, rather than all these different and wild and crazy things that they want, that they think they want to wear. Because when they get out and they go for work, then they're not going to be able to do that.
Okay.
So whatever that is, I'm not saying it has to be uniform. I'm just saying it needs to be
I
something a
understand.
little bit more.
I got it.
Okay, thank
I
you.
got it. Miriam, go ahead.
Um,
And then I'm going to have to truncate this and have a
All
vote.
right, Scott, is it possible that the policy committee could write some
Yes.
kind of, in conjunction with the administrators at the high school and the middle school, some kind of regulations? I mean,
And you
Shipment
thought,
has
and you
written-
thought picking out pictures was difficult? I'm just, listen, I get where you're coming from. I think all these points are good points. This is why I said that this has been debated for 100 years. They could do that. I could say, let's work and write up a whole bunch of things. And we'd be having the same exact discussion, right? So the only thing from a cultural standpoint, my point is exactly what Liz said. They worked together on it. That's good. We may not agree exactly of the content, but they did work together on it. When you got the kids and the adults working together on something, usually you have better relationships and better outcomes for how they dress or whatever it would be. So I think they feel it's going to be better. I agree with also Carrie that it's not going to solve anything, but quite frankly, even if you had school uniforms, and I know Steve, you did not bring that up, that doesn't solve anything either, because my kid's gone to school uniforms in Hartford. Let me tell you something. They deal with dress issues all of the time, even when you have the school uniforms. So this is kind of one of these things where it's like it ebbs and flows, and it's a hot button topic, and there's no perfect answer to it. So that's why my recommendation right now is I want to open up school positively. That's what I want to do. And then we want to talk about this more and more and more and more. I'm game. I'll support you. I've been doing this a long time. I can run on a real nice initiative for you. We can have a lot of good discussions.
Great. Angie, did you have what I hope will be a final thought before we vote?
I just would agree that we could talk about it for hours. I've gone through this, even just the policy book, and a lot of it we're trying to just condense down to make it easier for the administration to run and do their, what they need to. And I just would hope that we would have confidence in our administration that this is what they've talked about with the kids. I can't ever think of her name, the resource officer. She was there, Miss Landry, thank you. And she really talks with the students a lot, and they really like her. And I think just her being able to be a part of it was huge, and I think it would be a good thing to pass it on and approve it, but that was already said.
All right, thanks. I'll just put down the gavel for a second and say I kind of agree with that position. I think where I land on it is that we got to rely on the process having been as good as possible, and realizing that none of these policies are an end in forever. So if we do want to refer it back to you for further discussion, or however you'd like to organize it again, Steve, I think you'll have other opportunities to vote on it as well.
He can be
as
ahead of
things
that
go forward.
initiative.
All right. That closes the discussion. I think we're at the place where we say all in favor, and I think we're going to have to at least do hands here. All right, all in favor of the motion? 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yay. Nay? 2 nay, and that comes to the total. We can't really take a vote from Marcia, right? All right. So the motion passes 5-2. Do we have another motion? Let's go on to policy motion number 2.
Right.
I'll just look forward to that.
Okay. I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a second read to approve the repeal deletion of the Ellington Public Schools policies as outlined in Exhibit A. Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion of the policies outlined in Exhibit A? Whew. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That one goes,
I'm abstaining.
I got an abstention, great. I record everything, okay. So that one passes 6-2. to 0 to 1 abstention.
You can.
Thank you.
And-
Angie?
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a second read to approve the repeal and adoption of the policies as outlined in Exhibit B.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Is there any discussion of the policies in Exhibit B? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That one passes unanimously. Angie?
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a second read to approve the adoption of policies as outlined in Exhibit C.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. You did good. Is there discussion of the policies in Exhibit C? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That one passes unanimously.
Wait, I'm abstaining.
Oh, sorry, when I say abstain, it would be good if you
I,
could just,
well,
I had to scratch out.
it's all right.
That one even goes 6-0-1. Number 5.
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a first read to repeal, delete the Ellington Public School policies as outlined in Sample A.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, why does this seem so hard today?
I don't know why it's so hard.
Jen's got to get back in charge of this.
We need Chris Picard-Wamball. She was quick.
Any discussions of policy in Sample A? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
All right, 6-0-1, that one goes. It's adopted.
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a first read to adopt the policies as outlined in Sample B.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion of Sample B? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
6-0-1, that one passes.
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a first read to repeal and replace the policies as outlined in Sample C.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion of Sample C? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
That was
That
a
one
strong
passes.
second, Carrie.
6-0-1.
What?
A strong second.
Angie?
And then this is 8, right?
Yeah, we're,
Move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a first read to repeal 6,000 series policies as outlined in Attachment A.
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
That one passes 6-0-1.
I move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a first read to repeal and adopt 6,000 series policies as outlined in Attachment B.
Second.
Second, thank you. Discussion? Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
I'd like to talk about policy 6162.6, which is entitled Use of School Technology, Copyright Laws. And it says repeal and adopt employee use of district computer systems and student use of, and the student use of district's computer systems and internet safety. We have tabled the use of electronic devices for students in the 5,000 series. And I would like,
The policy has?
yes,
Okay,
that's on the sheet here, of the
Gotcha.
colored sheets.
thank you.
And I would like to ask that we table the policy for the employees, and we discuss the use of computer and technologies for all people as one whole, unit, both our if we've tabled it for students, I'm asking that we table it for employees and look carefully at what we want.
Did you make that motion at policy?
No, I did not, because that was 1,000 pages, and I
I
have
get
spent
it.
days reading this.
I get it.
And so I went back and looked today to see that we tabled the student ones, and so I did not mention this at policy because there's just, the quantity of information is just overwhelming.
I get
So
it.
can we add an amendment?
Technically, the motion is to pass attachment B, and I don't think there's a way to sever
Well,
one of the policies.
could
at this
I
point.
make a motion that we table
Can you make an amendment?
62.6 from attachment
It could be
B?
a friendly amendment, I suppose,
be
to the
amendment.
motion.
I don't know the rules.
Maybe amendment.
It could be a friendly amendment to sever 6162.6 from
Just-
attachment B.
If that's what the board wants to do, just make it a friendly amendment and we can put it in the tabled thing.
Since you're already going to discuss.
it's
this
not-
one,
Yeah, I don't necessarily think one equates with the other, but that's fine. So if you want to do it that way, it's not going to be the end of the world.
The only
So
thing is-
can I, do you remember who made, who you made this motion? And you guys just have to agree to that friendly amendment to sever 6162.6
Didn't we
from.
say if we pass it, though, it's the first read, and therefore,
Yeah,
by second read, we can amend it as needed, or no?
Yeah.
that would work too. I mean,
That
we
would be
will have a
done.
second.
You're just basically
vote of it.
removing one aspect of it. And it's noted, we can note it in the minutes.
I guess the
and-
question would be, can policy do this before the second reading? Or,
Yes, we'll be meeting before the next meeting to put this on the next Board of Ed meeting, so.
all right, what would those who moved and seconded want to do? You want to do the friendly amendment, or do you want to discard that?
Second it?
Did I second it?
Wouldn't it be more
It doesn't matter to me.
efficient? Wouldn't it be more efficient just to make the amendment if,
seconding.
since Dr. Nickel doesn't have a problem, it won't be anything at all?
Except
Hold
that,
it.
yeah, at that point, when we do the second read, it would have to be while it's still tabled. You couldn't really fix it between now, the first read and the second read, I don't think.
Right, but we have something, we have
Yeah,
other things tabled.
Yeah, I think
We
the,
have other items tabled. Can we put it in that column?
Mike, the second read of the attachment B would simply be as amended.
As amended,
Right.
which would be with the tabled 6162, then we'd
Right.
have to pass 6162 separately.
Correct. And we're going to have to take the tabled ones and
Yeah.
we may do a separate appendix with the tabled ones. Okay?
All
So
right,
hopefully we get through all the tabled ones and we do a
It's still up to
second
you to either
second
accept the
one.
friendly amendment or not at this point.
And the recommendation is, what you were saying, did you hear everything?
Yeah, it would be the new motion would be to accept Appendix B without 61626.
I withdraw the second.
You can't do that.
Can't do that, so we
just
will
did it.
add the friendly amendment.
That's a yes to the friendly?
Yes to the friendly.
All right,
If it
so
ends this, yes,
um,
yes to the friendly.
is there any further discussion? The current motion would be to pass Appendix B without 6162.6. Any further discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstain. So, just for the record, if you got that, the 600 series attachment B passes with a friendly amendment of severing 6162.6, 601. Angie?
Last one. Move that upon the recommendation of the Policy Committee, the Board of Education hold a first read to adopt the 6,000 policy series as outlined in attachment C.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'm not doing that again.
Any brave second? We can't pass it if there's not a second.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? You're an aye, a 7-1 unanimous for item number 10. That completes our proposed motions.
Action items are done.
That was harder than I thought.
Policy does not tend to be easy.
I really didn't think I'd have
We're-
to do work here. for
We're
Jim.
doing very well. The policy book is massive. We're doing very
Oh,
well.
I understand that. It's just Jen, when she said, "Can you sit in?" Now I know why she went on vacation for this week. Is there any old or new business for the Board of Ed? I am not aware of any. Is there any correspondence? I have not been made aware of any.
Our secretary isn't here.
Even better. Is there, in the round table, let's go around. Do you have anything? Round table, anything?
I do.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, I do have one thing.
I'm
back
sorry,
to-
we're skipping back to Carrie because she's
Oh.
somewhere over on the right.
Okay, I do have one thing that came up that I thought maybe we could consider, or I'm gonna have a question actually. With the phys ed at the high school, right? You have to take physical education. Well, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to have some of these kids taking physical education class, okay? And here's why. Because they should be able to waive out of that if they're doing a sport or if they're doing something, and then that would give them another opportunity to take a class that they're interested in, or make the most out of the high school experience. So for instance, I don't think that they should have to take phys ed if they're doing a full sport or if they're involved, like you're giving me a strange look over there. What I mean is, I know children that are at the gym 5 days a week for gymnastics, for dance, for whatever their interest is, soccer, whatever, football. It doesn't make much sense that they would have to take phys ed. So is there, under our current policy, or if they're already doing a sport or doing some activity like that, that would qualify them to not have to take the phys ed class, you see what I'm saying, Scott? Don't look at me like that, because other schools do it.
Well, how was I looking at you?
I don't know, you're giving me a strange look. I saw
Isn't
one
it
over
state-
here across the way, too.
State law, they have to.
Well, let me just say,
Okay, no strange looks over here. I'd have to go back and look. This has been an argument that's been had with the state in terms of graduation requirements and being able to do that. And I don't believe that that is an allowable thing by the state in terms of graduation requirements.
Well, I think it is, because I know they do it at private schools, but I also know that at South Windsor, okay, so at the, where my daughter dances competitively and is there 4 days a week dancing, she said that South Windsor allows kids that are in that high-level program like that to waive out of the phys ed, that they certify that is a,
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it now, but we can look into that. So let me work with Oliver. We'll take a look at it, and if there's something we want to adjust with graduation requirements and waiving out of, we can look into it.
well,
I
I just
actually
think,
we
But
could put it
isn't
to
it state-
curriculum.
okay, well, I just think
could
it's a, here's
Let's
what,
put it on.
Yeah, we can look at it.
here's why I think it's great, though, guys, because for a student who maybe wants to be able to take another class they're interested in, whether maybe it's culinary, maybe it's something else that they're interested in, it now gives them a bigger, better experience at the high school, because we
Sure.
do offer so many cool courses. How do you fit them all in? I'm looking at some of them thinking, oh, I would love to take that class, or I would love to take the class. So having them take a phys ed class, if they're already doing that requirement at a high level, I'm not saying they take, one yoga class a week and now they don't have to take gym. That's not what I'm saying. These kids that are dedicated to a sport or an activity that is, physical, they should not have to take
Yeah,
phys
I
ed.
can-
If they want to take it,
It's-
take it, but
It's
saying.
not something that I'd looked at in a long time, so I
Yeah.
can go back, we can figure it out.
got
Oliver
it.
will be on it, and
We'll-
thank you for bringing it up.
Yep, we'll toss it to curriculum.
Yep.
And,
I think it's a
Like,
good
get it
idea.
done, Mike.
well, we'll make sure that you're in on that. It's interesting. I think when I went out to high school, being on the tennis team, it got you out of gym class. But
Yeah, and the
it's-
thing
I
is,
mean, that was 100 years ago.
I know, but the thing is too, then that gives you an opportunity to take a class that you may not
No, I
have.
just cut school at that point. Liz?
What's the state law say?
Yes, that's what I was.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
I'll
I-
gonna look into it.
So I'll look into it.
Did you have a roundtable thing?
Yes.
Well, can we have
The
it?
new teachers, usually we would have something.
For the September board meeting.
The September, okay, thank you.
Steve, anything for us?
No.
Miriam?
I want to thank the presentation, thank you for the presentation about our janitorial staff. I think
was super.
those of us who retired from teaching know that if you want something done, you better get friendly with the janitor. They're your best friends.
Secretaries and the.
Secretaries and the janitors will help out. And that was a wonderful presentation, and
That's how
I thank you for publicizing that. I think it's important.
Can I ask a question about Ms. Socha's point?
You may.
So I remember like maybe a few years ago, it was that you could take like a semester of gym and then a semester of health for 2 years, and then junior and senior year, you wouldn't have to do anything. Did that change as a state policy?
I'm going to have to look into it, Rick.
Okay.
But yes,
Because
I
that
do know
point,
that.
that .25 class is very frustrating because it eats away at a semester every single year. And
Yeah.
you can't take a full year course there, junior and senior year, when you have so many options.
And semesterizing it would make that even more possible. You wouldn't have to do it just freshman
Right.
and
It has
junior year, right? You
changed
could pick
from
up your
between,
health
it
class.
has changed from my seniors who graduated last year till
Right.
ABRAM
It has
this year.
changed.
It has changed. They
Well-
now have to take it 4 years, 4 years.
Thank you, and that
I
we'll
don't know if that
definitely
means
take it up.
credits or if it means years.
I'm looking forward to looking into it for all of you.
Me
Do you
too.
feel like that you would be do you feel like the phys ed thing is a good?
I mean, I understand why having.
I
phys
might
ed-
even stay after this meeting and look into it for a while. I just park myself right here and get right into
Which
it.
brings
So
us to the
exciting.
close.
And I will tell
Meeting.
you, can I just add one more thing? I had a parent tell me that they got called from a high school
I think I'm going to
gym
require
teacher.
Oliver to stay with me too.
This is why I never want to do this again.
One more thing. And then this was
Mike.
a frustration on a parent who got called from a high school teacher, gym teacher. And they were asked that their son dial back their intensity in gym class who was athletic. And hearing that coming from knowing the kid, it was just like, that's kind of hard to like relay to a high schooler who wants to compete and is an extreme athlete. It was just kind of bizarre to me. So I can see where if they are intense in a different area, it can be a benefit. So thank you for taking the time for one more thing.
Mike,
My pleasure.
I did want to mention one thing. I'm sorry. But I did like, and I thought was well done, Dr. Nichols' presentation to the newscaster.
Yes.
Oh,
And-
Second that.
And I thought the letter was well done. I don't know if you did that all by yourself, or somebody else helped you, or
Tracy
that was
did.
really good.
I think
It's-
Mike wrote it for him.
Put it this way.
Mike wrote it for him.
I'll tell you my process. I think a lot about the concepts and ideas that I want to say, and those who are close to me know that I talk about them all the time. And I write things out, and I work. Brian at times, pushes back and helps me frame my thoughts a little bit more clear. And I get thoughts and ideas from Tracy and Sue Gallagher, and I run it by people, and then I settle on what I want. So it's mostly mine, but I have my colleagues that help me.
And the Frances young lady that interviewed you, is her mother a teacher?
Her mother is a para in the school district.
Oh, okay. Because there was a Frances that taught school here. I think she's retired.
Steve, I would
Thank you,
entertain a
Steve.
motion to adjourn.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right.
Motion to
Second?
adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Finally, a unanimous vote is recorded. We're adjourned at
to mix it up. So do you
8:21. Thank you.